Monday, October 7. Surely he is the prophet. Read John chapter 6, verses 14, 15 and 26 to 36. How did the people respond to his miracle, and how did Jesus use this to try to teach them who he was? First of all, John 6, beginning at verse 14. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. And then beginning in verse 26 of John chapter 6, Jesus answered, "Very truly I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval." Then they asked him, "What must we do to do the works God requires?" Jesus answered, "The work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent." So they asked him, "What sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat." Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, it is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world." "Sir," they said, "always give us this bread." Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But, as I told you, you have seen me, and still you do not believe." The Judeans were expecting an earthly Messiah who would deliver them from the oppression of the Roman Empire. Two of the most difficult things encountered in war are feeding the troops and caring for the wounded and dead. By his miracles, Jesus showed that he could do both. But that's not why Jesus had come, and that wasn't the purpose of his miracle. Instead, the account of the feeding of the 5,000 provided the opportunity to illustrate that Jesus is the bread of life, that God himself came down from heaven. "I am the bread of life," he said. "He who comes to me shall never hunger," in John 6:35. This is the first of the 7 I am statements in the Gospel of John, where I am is connected with some predicate. Bread of life in John 6:35. Then Jesus declared, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never go hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Light of the world in John 8 verse 12, when Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." And then door in John 10 verses 7 and 9. Therefore Jesus said again, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep." And verse 9, "I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture." And good shepherd in John 10 verse 11. "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." And verse 14, "I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me." And then in John 11:25, the resurrection and the life. Jesus said to her, "I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die." And then in John 14 verse 6, we read about the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus answered, "I am the way, and the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And John 15, verse 1, the true vine. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. And then in verse 5, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Each of these points to an important truth about Jesus. The I am statements point back to Exodus chapter 3, where God presents himself to Moses as the great I am. And here we're going to compare with John 8, verse 58. And that reads, Very truly I tell you, Jesus answered, before Abraham was born, I am. Jesus is that great I am. But the people missed all this. As we read in The Desire of Ages, page 385, their dissatisfied hearts queried why, if Jesus could perform so many wondrous works as they had witnessed, could he not give health, strength, and riches to all his people, free them from their oppressors, and exalt them to power and honour? The fact that he claimed to be the sent of God and yet refused to be Israel's king was a mystery which they could not fathom. His refusal was misinterpreted. Many concluded that he dared not assert his claims because he himself doubted as to the divine character of his mission. Thus they opened their hearts to unbelief, and the seed which Satan had sown bore fruit of its kind in misunderstanding and defection. End of quote. They were looking for material benefit instead of truth that endures to eternal life. This is a trap that we all potentially face if we are not careful. And so to finish today, how can we avoid getting caught up in material things at the expense of the spiritual? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.